Welcome to a crucial conversation about a topic none of us can afford to ignore: the potential onset of World War III. We're living in a world where geopolitical tensions are rising at an alarming rate. Major powers are flexing their military muscles, rivalries are intensifying, and conflicts are escalating. Let's start with the United States, a nation that has been a global superpower for over a century. It's involved in a multitude of international relationships, some of which are strained to a breaking point. On the other side of the globe, we have Russia, a country with a formidable military and a history of geopolitical maneuvering that has often clashed with American interests. Then, there's China, an emerging global superpower with a rapidly expanding economy and military. The growing assertiveness of China in the South China Sea and its ongoing trade and economic rivalries with the United States are sources of major concern, and we cannot forget North Korea. Despite its small size, this nation poses a significant threat with its nuclear ambitions and its unpredictable leadership. These dynamics aren't just a game of political chess. They have real, tangible implications for each and every one of us. Understanding these geopolitical tensions is key to our preparedness. We need to know what is happening around the world, how it could potentially lead to a global conflict, and what that conflict might mean for us on the ground. We're not just talking about remote possibilities here. We're talking about scenarios that could directly impact our lives and our survival. And while we all hope that such a devastating event like World War III never happens, it's always better to be prepared. Being aware of these tensions, understanding the possible triggers for conflict, and recognizing the potential consequences of such a conflict are all critical parts of preparedness. This knowledge isn't meant to scare you, but to empower you. As we can see, the geopolitical landscape is complex and volatile, making awareness and preparedness paramount. In the face of a potential World War III, it's crucial to understand where the initial targets might be. War strategists and analysts often look at key areas that hold significant military or economic value. In North America, these locations are far-reaching and diverse. Let's start with the major cities. Places like New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago are not only population centers, but also hubs of economic activity. These cities are home to critical infrastructure, from financial districts to major ports, making them potential targets. Next, we have military bases. The United States is home to several strategic military installations. Think of places like Fort Bragg in North Carolina, the naval base in Norfolk, Virginia, or the Cheyenne Mountain Complex in Colorado. These locations are vital to the nation's defense and would likely be on any adversary's radar. Ports are another potential target. They serve as gateways for international trade and naval operations. Major ports, such as those in Houston, Los Angeles, and New York, could be in the line of fire. Infrastructure critical to national security and defense, such as power plants, communication networks, and oil refineries, might also be targeted. These facilities are crucial for maintaining the country's energy supply and communication capabilities, making them attractive targets for an enemy looking to disrupt the nation's operations. Finally, nuclear facilities and research centers could be on the list. These facilities contribute to the country's nuclear capabilities and technological advancements, making them key strategic points. Now, it's important to remember that this is not an exhaustive list, nor is it a certainty that these locations would be targeted. However, understanding potential prime targets can help us anticipate possible scenarios and prepare accordingly. Knowledge of these potential targets can help us prepare and respond effectively. In the next section, we'll discuss what the first 15 minutes after the initial attack might look like and how governments and military forces might respond. Stay tuned. Now let's imagine the unimaginable. What would the first 15 minutes of World War III look like? It begins not with a bang, but with a whisper, a ripple in the digital ether. Cyber attacks may be the first wave of assault, crippling communication systems, disrupting power grids, and causing widespread chaos even before the first missile takes flight. In this era of digital warfare, the battlefield is not just on land, sea, or air, but in the invisible realm of cyberspace as well. Now let's turn our gaze upward. The satellites orbiting our planet, the unseen guardians of our modern world, are likely to be among the first casualties. Their destruction or disruption could impact everything from GPS navigation to weather forecasting, further destabilizing an already chaotic situation. On land, the first 15 minutes would be a flurry of activity at military bases across North America. The sudden scramble of jets, the hurried mobilization of troops, the rapid deployment of missile defense systems, all responding to a threat that was, until moments ago, merely a dark cloud on the horizon. In the seas, submarines carrying nuclear warheads would dive deep into the ocean's depths, ready to retaliate if necessary. Simultaneously, aircraft carriers and warships would spring into action, their radars scanning for incoming threats, their crews bracing for the storm to come. And what about the skies? Well, they would be streaked with trails of white as intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, arc toward their targets. Traveling at speeds over 15,000 miles per hour, these deadly harbingers of destruction could reach their targets in as little as 30 minutes. But what makes this 15-minute window so crucial is not merely the launch of these missiles, but the decision-making that follows. It's in this narrow time frame that leaders must decide whether to retaliate, a decision that could plunge the world into nuclear winter, or hopefully, maintain a shaky peace. The first 15 minutes of World War III would be a time of fear and uncertainty, but also a time of rapid response and swift action. Governments, military forces, and civilians alike would be thrust into a new reality, one where every second counts. And let's not forget, behind the scenes, emergency protocols would be activated. Continuity of government plans would ensure the survival of national leadership, while civil defense measures would be put into action to protect civilian populations as best as possible. In this whirlwind of events, one thing becomes clear. Preparedness is not just beneficial, it's vital. It's the difference between being a step ahead or a step behind when the clock starts ticking. While this scenario is hypothetical, it emphasizes the need for immediate readiness. Because in the face of such a monumental event, every second, every decision, every action could mean the difference between survival and catastrophe. In the midst of such chaos, what would happen to us, the civilians? This is a question that reverberates in the minds of many, and rightly so. Life, as we know it, would change in an instant. The ordinary would be replaced by the extraordinary, and the expected would give way to the unprecedented. Imagine, if you will, the sirens wailing, echoing through the silence of the early morning. They're not your typical storm warnings or fire alarms. They're the harbingers of a reality we've only seen in the darkest of films and read about in the grimmest of novels. Emergency alerts would flood every available communication channel, from televisions to radios, from cell phones to public announcement systems. They would inform us of the imminent danger and guide us toward safety. The government would activate evacuation protocols, moving civilians from targeted areas to safer zones. Yet, the harsh truth is that, in such a scenario, not everyone would make it to these safe havens. Roads would be jam-packed, public transport overwhelmed, and panic would be the order of the day. This is where a personal and family preparedness plan becomes crucial. It's not about painting a picture of doom and gloom, but about equipping ourselves with the knowledge and tools to navigate through such distressing times. We're talking about knowing your evacuation routes, having a meeting point if your family gets separated, understanding how to shelter in place if evacuation isn't an option. This preparedness extends to supplies as well. Stocking up on essentials like food, water, and medical supplies could go a long way in ensuring survival. In the face of a power outage, having alternative sources of light and heat could mean the difference between despair and hope. The impact on civilians would be significant, there's no denying that. But resilience is woven into the fabric of humanity. We've endured and overcome countless adversities throughout history, and if such a time were to come, we would rise to the occasion once again. In such times, preparedness could be the difference between life and death. It's not about living in fear, but about standing strong in the face of uncertainty. Preparedness is the first line of defense, the beacon of light in the darkest hour. So, how do we prepare for a situation of such magnitude, you might ask? Preparation is the cornerstone of survival, and this begins with a thorough understanding of the potential challenges we might face. First off, let's talk about short-term survival during the initial strikes. In the event of a major conflict, services we take for granted, think electricity, water supply, internet, could be compromised. Therefore, it's essential to have a self-sustaining survival kit ready. This should include necessities like bottled water, canned food, medical supplies, and other essentials that can sustain you and your family for at least 2 weeks. But don't forget about protection. Hazards might not just be physical, they could be invisible too, like radiation. So, make sure your gear includes radiation detection devices and protective clothing. Now let's look at the bigger picture. long-term survival strategies in a potentially altered geopolitical landscape. This is where your skills and knowledge play a vital role. Familiarize yourself with basic survival skills such as foraging and hunting, purifying water, and first aid procedures. These skills could be lifesavers when the conventional resources are scarce or non-existent. In a long-term scenario, community becomes crucial. Establishing strong relationships with those around you, forming alliances and pooling resources can significantly boost your chances of survival. And finally, mental preparedness is just as critical. War is a grim reality, and its psychological toll can be immense. Regularly practicing mindfulness techniques and maintaining a positive outlook can help you stay resilient during trying times. Remember, this isn't about spreading fear, but about fostering preparedness and resilience. And while we hope a situation like World War III never comes to pass, it's always better to be prepared and not need it, than to need it and not be prepared. Preparation is key, and these strategies can equip us for the unexpected. This isn't just about surviving, but about preserving our humanity, our communities, and our way of life. Because ultimately, that's what we're fighting for. As we prepare, one of the most important aspects is identifying and preparing safe shelters. In the event of a crisis, the four walls of a shelter could mean the difference between life and death. Now, a shelter could be your home, or a community shelter, depending on the time you have and the severity of the situation. If you're at home when disaster strikes, your basement or an interior room on the ground floor can offer protection. You want to put as many walls as possible between you and the outside world. If you're outside or don't have a basement, community shelters are designed to withstand disasters and can provide refuge. But merely having a shelter is not enough. It needs to be stocked with essentials that can help you survive the initial stage of the crisis. A survival kit specifically designed for such an event is crucial. This should include water, non-perishable food, a first aid kit, and basic tools like a multi-tool and a flashlight. However, in a scenario like World War III, you may also need to consider additional threats such as radiation and biohazards. For radiation protection, your kit should include potassium iodide tablets. These can protect your thyroid gland from radiation and reduce the risk of long-term health issues. As for biohazards, a good quality gas mask and biohazard suit can provide a vital line of defense. Remember, the goal is not just to survive, but to do so in a manner that allows you to maintain your health and vitality. The aftermath of a disaster can be a long and challenging time, and your physical well-being will be key to navigating it successfully. Also, never underestimate the importance of a solid plan. Everyone in your family or group should know where the shelter is, what's in the survival kit, and their role in an emergency. This can significantly increase your chances of survival. Being prepared with a safe shelter and survival kit could save lives. In a crisis, communication and information are as important as food and water. In the midst of a crisis like World War III, accurate information and clear lines of communication become invaluable. The early minutes of a global conflict would likely be characterized by confusion and fear. In this chaos, staying informed through reliable sources is crucial. It's not just about knowing what's happening on a global scale, but also understanding the situation in your local community. Local news outlets, emergency broadcasts, and trusted online sources can provide this vital information. But remember, in a high-stakes situation like this, misinformation can spread as fast as the truth. So it's essential to verify any information before acting on it. Always cross-reference news from multiple sources to ensure its accuracy. Yet what happens when traditional communication channels fail? In the wake of a catastrophic event, it's possible that the internet and cellular networks could go down. That's why it's important to have backup methods of communication. Consider investing in a battery or crank-powered radio which can receive AM, FM, and NOAA weather alerts. Ham radios, also known as amateur radios, can also be a lifesaver, allowing you to communicate with others even when cell towers are down. Communication isn't just about staying informed, it's also about staying connected with your family and community. In a crisis, your community can be your strongest ally. Establishing a communication plan with your family and neighbors can help you all to respond more effectively. This plan might include predetermined meeting spots, signals, or codes. In a world where we're so used to being connected, the thought of being cut off can be frightening. But with a little preparation, you can ensure that you're never completely out of the loop, even in the most challenging circumstances. Staying connected and informed can help us navigate through the chaos.